Anti-aircraft fire from the air assault forces of the Ukrainian Armed Forces brought down a Russian Su-30 fighter jet. Anti-aircraft gunners from the 80th Separate Air Assault Brigade of the Air Assault Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine successfully brought down a Russian Su-30 multi-role fighter aircraft in recent days. A pilot did not anticipate being shot down by Lviv paratroopers armed with a Zu-23 23mm dual anti-aircraft gun, the State Security Service of Ukraine's press office stated on Telegram. According to reports, the Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine shot down 2 enemy aircraft on September 13th, a Su-25 attack aircraft and a Su-24 bomber. The artillery and missile units of the Armed Forces of Ukraine targeted enemy equipment columns, the Kakhovka Bridge, a pontoon bridge, and enemy equipment clusters in the region of Ola-Prystan and Detention in southern Ukraine on September 14th. Our missile and artillery units continue to conduct fire operations, specifically targeting enemy equipment columns, the Kakhovka Bridge, and the pontoon bridge close to the Antonivka Bridge. The enemy soldiers and equipment clusters at Ola-Prystan and Detention, as well as a munitions storage facility, were struck, according to Vladislav Nazarov, a spokesperson for Operational Command South. Sent over Telegram. According to preliminary information, the enemy lost 27 soldiers and 2 vehicles. A drop zone assault vehicle was deployed from enemy positions to one of the Ukrainian forces. The remaining enemy casualties are given. According to reports, the missile and artillery units of the Armed Forces of Ukraine conducted over 430 fire missions. They eliminated 121 Russian soldiers, 5 tanks, 9 other types of armored vehicles, 3 Msta-B howitzers, 2 Gvozdika self-propelled howitzers, 2 Panzer S-1 anti-aircraft missile and artillery systems, a command and staff vehicle, and a radio-electronic warfare station in the southern regions of Ukraine over the past 24 hours. Nearly 5,000 Ukrainian military personnel have received training in the United Kingdom. According to the Ukrainian Armed Forces General Staff, this is the case. With the assistance of instructors from Canada, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Ukraine, and the United Kingdom, about 5,000 of our military members have successfully finished training. They have acquired fundamental knowledge, skills, and abilities in tactical medical, engineering, live fire, psychological, and tactical training, including offensive and urban defensive operations, the assertion states. The General Staff said that integrated military training of Ukrainian personnel would continue in the United Kingdom. The name of the initiative initiated by the British government is Operation Interflex. Soon, the operation will be extended, including implementing a training program for younger military unit leaders. The statement continues, Operation Interflex is one of the clearest demonstrations of worldwide solidarity for our country and compelling proof that Ukraine is not alone in its struggle against Russian aggression. As previously reported by Ukrinform, the United Kingdom has dramatically increased the training program for Ukrainian recruits. The number of Ukrainians participating in the training has been expanded to tens of thousands, and its duration has been extended from 3 to 5 weeks. Local police officers chosen by Russian invading troops are resigning en masse in Russian-occupied Kherson. In light of the Ukrainian army's recent military victories in the area, according to the agency's interlocutor, the number of police officers willing to resign after defecting to the Russian side in recent months has grown dramatically. As an official justification for their desire to resign, the traitors claim their supervisors' failure to provide adequate working conditions. Rostislav Malinovsky, a local who had joined the so-called main directorate of the Ministry of Internal Affairs in the Kherson area, as constituted by the SBU security agency, filed one resignation report. He is prepared to resign as deputy head of the Criminal Investigation Department. He has requested that his contract be terminated due to the deterioration of the situation in the Kherson area. D.A. Metis, another policeman serving in the occupied Kherson area, is reportedly a Russian citizen who requests a transfer to his old duty station in St. Petersburg. A supervisor of the Suvorov City Police Department of the main department of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Russia in the Kherson area purportedly demands transfer due to the lack of housing and suitable financial assistance in Kherson. According to the source, the overall disposition of the Russian military and security personnel in the seized territory of Ukraine suggests that they want to leave and depart. According to reports, on September 13th, the Ukrainian military in the southern conflict zone killed 121 Russians, damaged military equipment, and attacked ammo stores and 3 command and control sites. 2 Russian agents working in Ukraine were detained. Employees of the Security Service of Ukraine, SSU, 2 Russian agents on duty in Mykolaiv Oblast were arrested. The unsuccessful events on the Russian side continue. Recorded from a phone call between a Russian soldier and his father, the article continues. Ukraine's offensive in Kharkiv worsens the morale of the already poor Russian soldiers. The transcript and audio recording of the speech, which was recorded on an indefinite date by the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, were published on social media platforms. A translation by the Daily Beast source revealed an enraged son who surprised his father by saying that the Russians had lost in the area. "I'm serious with you. Do you know how many wounded we have? We have nowhere to run," said the soldier. There is another piece of news today. According to the news, 2 Russian agents on duty in Ukraine were detained. Employees of the Ukrainian Security Service, SSU, detained 2 Russian agents in Mykolaiv Oblast. How do you think the Russian agents were caught and where are they now? Russia's new war strategy. Russia will send inexperienced soldiers to defend its occupation in Ukraine. Ukrainian military units crossed Russia's defense line. According to the Russian news channel Rybar, the Ukrainian army broke through the Russian occupation defense line at Davydiv in the Kherson region. According to people who are experienced in the field, this move to Ukraine is very important. Davydiv is an important gateway to Novokakhovka. It is known as one of the 2 damaged crossing points in Dnipro and the main supply base in the region, as well as the water source of Crimea. It is known that the Russian army suffers from a huge shortage of military personnel. After the successful attacks on Ukraine, this problem of Russia increased even more. A large number of Russian soldiers surrendered to the Ukrainian army in Kharkiv as they retreated. That's why the Russian administration will send inexperienced soldiers to the war in Ukraine. Russia is trying to find a solution by sending as many people to the region as it can, with or without training. According to the latest news, the Russian Federation will carry out the early graduation of students who will be sent to war in Ukraine. Ukraine liberated the Syeverodonetsk region from occupation. The British Ministry of Defense received a major blow in the Kharkiv region of the 1st Guards Tank Army of the Western Military District of the Russian Defense Forces, one of the most prestigious armies of Russia. The ministry said it would take years to revive the army, which had suffered heavy losses. The 1st Guards Tank Army of the Russian Western Military District, one of Russia's most elite armies, suffered heavy losses near Kharkiv. In a statement on social media, the British Ministry of Defense reported that Russia has withdrawn the 1st Guards Tank Army from the Kharkiv region. According to the latest news, Ukraine took control of the territory of the settlement of Syeverodonetsk. According to rumors, the Ukrainian army took control of the settlement of Syeverodonetsk. In the Luhansk region, the Ukrainian soldiers scored another victory. The Russians have completely abandoned Crimea. Ukraine took control of the territory of the settlement of Syeverodonetsk. According to the latest reports, the Ukrainian army took control of the settlement of Syeverodonetsk. Ukrainian soldiers achieved another success in the Luhansk region. According to this news, on the morning of September 13th, Russian soldiers completely left Crimea in the Luhansk region. Ukrainian soldiers have not yet entered the city. The war continues around Lyman in the Donetsk region. Serhiy Haidai, head of the Luhansk Oblast Military Administration, stated that Crimea has been completely evacuated. According to the information received from Haidai, there is no police, no command, no prosecutor's office. All the Russians left the city. The Ukrainian flag continues to fly on the administrative building for the 3rd day in Crimea. At the same time, he added that the Ukrainian military forces did not enter the city. The Russian intelligence network tasked with investigative and operational actions in the Donetsk and Kirovohrad regions was neutralized. criminals gathered intelligence on the deployment and movement of troops and transmitted them to the Russian fronts. Armed forces, in the direction of the frontline areas of eastern Ukraine, computer equipment and cell phones containing evidence of detainees were found. Secret correspondence of the captured agents with representatives of the Russian Special Services was intercepted. First of all, the armed forces of Ukraine were interested in data on the number of personnel and equipment. Another Russian government agent was detained near Donetsk. He put the coordinates of the passage routes of Ukrainian military convoys on Google Maps. He conveyed this information to relevant persons in the Russian Federation through messengers. The captured agent is in contact with the country's special services, and so far, SBU investigators have informed all 3 detainees of the suspicion. Caught criminals were arrested and sent to prison. Putin has lost contact with the Russian military command. Recently, it was announced that the Russian position was destroyed by a bullet. Because of this, the vehicle belonging to the fleeing Russian soldiers was destroyed by Ukrainian bullets. It is claimed that the Russian soldiers did not have a good day due to the events. According to the latest news today, the Russian command has lost contact with Putin. The military command and Putin are unable to communicate. Contrary to popular belief, he refused to meet with the Russian generals and hid in a hole for at least a few days. Some sources even claim that the commander was probably in these hiding spots for weeks. What are your thoughts on the interruption of communication between the Russian military command and Putin? A Ukrainian drone destroyed the Russian front. Successful attacks on Ukraine continue at full speed. On September 12th, at the Kharkiv front, the Ukrainian forces reached the Russian border in all the border villages north of the city of Kharkiv. Ukrainian forces advanced about 20 kilometers in some areas in 2 days, liberating the 100 kilometers border under Russian control from occupation last week. Today, there is another piece of news on this subject. Ukrainian drones rendered the Russian position unusable. A Ukrainian drone seized the ammunition depot and seized the front. Then a bomb is dropped there utilizing a remotely controlled unmanned aerial vehicle. Thus, the headquarters of the Russian troops were destroyed. Do you think the soldiers inside you are alive? The Russian military officer talks about the missing during the talk. Ukrainian intelligence published a phone call from a Russian soldier on the internet. On September 11th, the Russians abandoned the settlements of Velikiy Berlik and Dvorikna in the Kupiansk region and retreated. Ukrainian soldiers, on the other hand, advanced and reached the Russian state border. Analysts at the Institute for War Studies, ISW, note that Ukrainian forces inflicted a large amount of damage on Russia and quickly liberated almost all of Kharkiv Oblast from occupation. According to the breaking news, the Russian military officer talks about a missing phone call. In the phone call, the Russian military official in the Kharkiv region explains that Ukraine is advancing with successful attacks. The Russians have suffered too many casualties and a lack of assistance. Why do you think the Russians suffer so many casualties? Russian attacks in South Bakhmut and Soledar were repulsed. Hot clashes continue on the 201st day of the Russian occupation. Both armies are tired of war. Both sides give their all to win the war. But it is widely accepted that Ukraine has begun to achieve incredible success since the start of the Kharkiv offensive. The Ukrainian soldiers, who are fighting with everything, are pushing the Russian soldiers back from the front. Today, there is another piece of news on this subject. Russian troops in South Bakhmut and Soledar retreated. Russian aces south of Bakhmut and Soledar have been unable to advance for a month. In addition, hundreds of attacks were repelled. Russian soldiers are trapped. The Russians are surrounded by the forests of Izium. The situation in the Kharkiv region is hot and tense. As a result of the Kharkiv attack, many Russian soldiers were killed. Russian tanks were found. These tanks are allegedly hiding in the jungle. Images of abandoned tanks were captured and shared by Ukraine on social media. The data of the Russians recorded on September 7th to 10th were announced. According to the claims of Ukrainian sources, about 7,000 Russian soldiers were taken as prisoners of war. In addition, 457 Russian main battle tanks, 1,380 armored combat vehicles, 54 ammunition artillery, 20 air defense systems, and 11 special equipment were captured by the Russians. As the Russian army left the front, it left behind hundreds of military equipment in Kharkiv. According to the latest news, the Russians were trapped in Izium. Russian soldiers are surrounded by the forests of Izium. Ukrainian military units launched a large-scale operation in the forest area.